I've been covering SRB2 for most of my channel's lifetime by this point, and so you would think I've covered just about every aspect of the game. But you know what? I really haven't. Almost the entirety of that time has been spent on covering mods and not the vanilla game, and whilst you can certainly argue that they are the main draw to the game nowadays, the ratio is still a little out of whack. But recently on my Discord server, Frostykin gave me the idea to take my usual review template and apply it to the vanilla characters. It's an obvious idea when you think about it, but I never had, and considering my thought process behind reviewing modded characters, it'll be interesting to see how the originals hold up, what with a far simpler set of abilities. Will the level of polish behind them make up for that? Let's find out. First up is the blue blur himself, Sonic the Hedgehog. I really should not have to explain what the concept behind Sonic's moveset is. He's fast. Really fast. By vanilla standards at least. He's massively outclassed by a lot of modded characters, but they're frankly operating on a completely different scale. I admit I can't quite tell what the SRB2 wiki is trying to say on the characters page, but I don't think Sonic actually runs faster than any other character. He simply has an ability that translates to great horizontal movement, the Thock. Sonic's primary ability, the Thock, is an instant burst of extra speed in whichever direction the camera is facing, which makes it very useful for a fairly wide variety of things. You can use it to accelerate very quickly, or to correct some missed jumps, or to redirect your momentum, or to attack enemies, or to get over large gaps. For such a simple ability, that's a lot of versatility. Clearly it has been well thought out and balanced, and that'll be a recurring theme with every vanilla character. They're by no means the strongest character you can use, but they'll all be executed with a much greater amount of thought given to polish and balance than the majority of modded ones. That's understandable, not meant to be a dig at modded characters, but priorities when creating a default cast will be very different to creating someone who wasn't created with being playable in SRB2 in mind. I'd say the only problem I have with the Thock is that it can sometimes feel like it drops too quickly. You are still affected by gravity as you are when not using it, but it feels like an ability that should go in a straighter horizontal line than it currently does. It could be down to the fact that outside of SRB2, I spend most of my time playing the boost games, where the air boost fills the same niche but is executed very differently, but there are times you miss jumps that the Thock feels like it should have reached pretty easily. Sonic's secondary ability is the classic spin dash, which acts like it always does. Roll into a ball, rev on the spot, instantly accelerate to a much higher speed. This isn't much different in SRB2 than usual, although the choice was probably made due to control constraints. I like the fact that they chose to use the hold mechanism to charge over massing spin, as I always find it to be easier to use that way. But yeah, that's vanilla Sonic. Unless you really want me to get into the nitty gritty of things and go on about how he can roll or how he interacts with shields, this is all of the abilities he has. The sole weakness Sonic has is that he lacks vertical movement of any kind, with the Thock only travelling horizontally, a standard jump, and not even a way to boost springs or take advantage of other characters' abilities in multiplayer. Sonic will remain very much attached to the ground the majority of the time. Luckily, his partner in crime Tails can be partnered with in story mode, so new players can decide to take advantage of his flight in tricky areas so as not to cause frustration, but realistically, most of you watching this will probably have gotten through that and decided to move on to Record Attack, where no such option exists, and just stuck with Sonic by himself. Obviously, I can't fault the character for being stuck with the default path when he's the reason they exist in the first place, and I only really complain about that with modded characters as a way to show their moveset is pretty boring, so I can't actually fault Sonic for this, merely use it to describe his weaknesses. Sonic sprites are nice. You've all seen them a million times, even outside of the fact that you've absolutely played or watched a video of SRB2 with him in it at least once. A hell of a lot of smaller mods will be recolors of these sprites. Perhaps that shows how strong they are. This is the archetypal classic Sonic design, serious enough not to be typecast as the cutesy Sonic version he's used as a lot in the modern day, but not so edgy as to have forgotten the fact that he's a short, pretty fat blue hedgehog in comparison to his lankier modern self. I think his proportions are the best the classic version has ever seen, with limbs thick enough to not seem spindly, a good quill length, and a decent ratio of head to everything else. I think his movements are strong, with good animations that showcase his attitude and personality well. The only real area of improvement with his current moveset and limits considered I really want are in relation to his colouring. It's alright in a vacuum, but when compared next to other mods, from different characters entirely to even his cross-momentum version, you begin to notice how it could be improved upon. In my honest opinion, Sonic Team Junior should just ask Frostykin whether they can use the cross-momentum colour scheme, as I think that has much better shading without going overboard on the saturation. But yeah, other than that, they're pretty great. All in all, it's honestly really difficult to rank any vanilla character in comparison to their modded brethren, as you need to look at them in a very different way. Whereas you might judge a modded character based off how in-depth their moveset is, or how successfully they imitate a different gameplay style, or how closely they format their abilities into working in SRB2 as movement tools, you need to judge a vanilla character off things like ease of use, balance, consistency with the rest of the game, and overall polish much more than you would with the former. Sonic especially suffers from this. He is the base character every other one, vanilla or modded, is built off of, so he is very simple, and his sprites are so common that you can be burnt out from seeing them, and so you need to take a step back and try and erase your experience with mods and such to look at him as he is. He's simple but very versatile. His sprites are used so much over some other sprites' interpretation because they're so strong, and he is a great jumping off point to move on to other characters' specializations, especially when his weaknesses are balanced by his duet with Tails. A great character when seen in that regard, and so a very good 8 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed the video. I plan on making this a sort of mini-series where I cover all of the vanilla characters in this way, and so.